Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is me, Casey is Forever, as you can probably know me from my Twitter, and this is
Uh,
Coach.
Yo, how y'all doing, everybody?
So we're pretty much back with the podcast. We're not, going right into it. Kind of huge hiatus starting off, but we figured that we should start it up again, and people were asking for it. Apparently, you
Yeah,
said.
yeah, yeah. Some people hit me up on Curious Cat, asked me when I was doing it again, and there was
Oh
one
man,
person in particular asked me in person, someone I know from our scene here in Middle Georgia,
oh that's awesome.
and it's like, yeah, man, I've been waiting for y'all. When's it coming back? So, you out there? I'm gonna go ahead and just say your name, Bruce. We out there. We coming back with the next episode, man.
Good shout outs, man. And thank you, Bruce. Hope to see you, man. Much appreciated, man. It's always good to to hear about like things like that in the FGC, and like the support is very, very powerful for with anything starting from grassroots.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess the basic principle of just somebody just wants to listen to you and hear what you have to say.
Yeah,
It's humbling yet fulfilling.
yeah. Especially, yeah, it's definitely humbling for me because there's so much other podcast they could be listening to us. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what's up. Because I mean, like, I guess with the FGC, the podcast things are just now rolling out really. Because you have like Reddit Street Fighter and a couple other ones out there, but you see more and more emerging because people kind of saw like the empty market, and it was emptier when we first started, but I guess it's starting to get more and more populated. So I hope people will still tune in and listen to us.
Right. So so now that we're back and we have so much to cover, I guess we could start off with like what happened recently because we obviously won't be able to get to everything. So I guess for me, it's I've been seeing my friends play a lot of Grand Blue.
Okay.
Um, it hasn't officially released in the U.S. yet. I think it comes out sometime in March.
Yeah,
One
it's
of
March 3rd, so it's this next
March
week.
3rd. Oh, that's pretty soon. I'm probably gonna get the most likely gonna get the U.S. version.
Yeah, same here.
I'm looking forward to play La Diva.
Yeah, she looks pretty cool because in that game it got people go, oh, it's just Street Fighter, but you clearly see like they made a very interesting grappler design, so I'm definitely interested in trying her. And Basaraga, like I'm never been like the armor guy, but that's
Right.
gonna make me come out of my comfort zone, so I want to try him as well.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I'm very, very, very. The game is like very interesting, especially so how it's balanced is very interesting because it's revolved around its cooldown system with its special moves. So like that to me is very. That tells me that it's. I could be wrong. I could be speaking too soon. But from what that tells me is you can't have a character that's like extremely powerful, takes over the system because they'll have cooldowns on their special moves.
I guess it depends on
So
how wild those normals are.
yeah,
Some character can
yeah,
win on those alone.
yeah. But if you think about it, that's pretty good. Like you know, characters like just relying on their normals versus a character that have like really strong specials that they can use over and over again. So
I'm kind of 50-50 on that because there are some characters like they ain't got the hurt box on their normals that are really strong to whiff punish, and they might be plus, and it might be something they can just whip out there. They might get damage from it. There are games like that. It's like
yeah,
I would rather them have a special, but it just depends on how it all pans out. But like I see what you're saying. I don't think I have not seen anything like that in Grand Blue. Like I've seen like people like you were mentioning earlier with the cooldowns. Like I see people going on and on about Grand's kick special, but like you said, ultimately there's a cooldown, so he can't just like keep putting it in your face. At some
right,
point, he's got enough room so you can make a counter decision.
yes. It looks like the game like the way chip works is pretty cool because I think if I remember correctly, once you get down to 1% health, then you they can get chipped out again or something like that.
Yeah,
So
you. Go ahead.
it has a very interesting a way on how it approaches chip.
Yeah, so like from how I know it works, basically you can't get chipped out to death from Like you always go to the magic pixel, and then you get chipped to death.
Right. Yeah.
So
That's
you
exactly.
kind of have like a gate, kind of just
Mm.
there in the way, so you can take that initial chip, but then you're in the danger zone. So that's definitely a cool compromise because you've seen a lot of games like going away from chip deaths,
Hmm.
like especially the old school feel. And I guess they wanted a lot of people say it's about making the games easier and stuff, but I don't know. Maybe it's a design decision. So I'll give you my thoughts now. Listen to yours. I think that when you make chip deaths, you really got to think about your game's design and interactions because a lot of interactions are fine when you can consider that you can block, but then they
Right.
become much harder. And they may be even impossible in some games. Like if you look at some of the older school games, if you get put in chip range, there's a lot of checkmate scenarios. Like no matter what you decide to do, you're not winning
Yeah.
this. And I think they wanted to avoid stuff like that by just removing chip in general. But I think that's a
Hmm.
good compromise. But what are your thoughts?
No, no, I agree totally. Like they made that system so that way they can't have automatic checkmate situations by having a magic pixel. And I think like Marvel had that as strong as broken as the game is to a lot of people. It did have the magic pixel thing, and that did occur. Like it did kind of change to like flip the tables in a lot of instances with a game like that. So to see a slower paced fighting game take advantage of that and be influenced by that and apply to their game, I think it's actually fantastic. I honestly think it fits better.
I think it's pretty good. Cause on the flip side of that, you got a game like say Street Fighter Five where you don't get chip kills at all unless you're willing to spend your 3 bars. And that puts
Right.
you in a situation where this person can still kind of run wild because no matter what you do to them, as long as they're willing to block and you don't have 3 bars, they know
Right.
they're not gonna die. And so
Yeah.
it can create a degree of chaos, especially if they're sitting on resources. But the other side of that is, well, it's the same with 0 health as 100 health. You just gotta hit them again.
Yeah.
So it just depends on how you look at it, but I can see how these different designs can cause different feelings, and it's based on also the system of the game, of course.
Yeah. Street Fighter. I like how I actually like how Street Fighter does it differently too. Like you do have ways from getting chipped with V reversal if you manage your meter correctly and stuff like that. So that's also another like interesting way of how they took chip deaths. So that's one thing that I like because I've been playing a lot of Street Fighter
Hmm.
lately, especially before the new season of DB FZ came out.
Yeah, yeah,
I really got back into Street Fighter 5 real heavy, and I think this to me, in my opinion, it's just as fun as Street Fighter AE, if not probably better for me.
yeah. It's definitely polarizing feelings, but I think if you typically go into things with an open mind, you can find some enjoyment out of it. Anything, and then if it's the thing that clicks with you, then it's gonna be real fun.
Yeah, because my biggest thing on fighting games in general is just originality. And when I have a hard time, I will go all out of my way to like find something that like sticks to me, or find a way that shows that expresses myself in gameplay. And Street Fighter Five, when it first released, it had a hard time doing that. And a lot of newer games, they kind of do that. I think it's because since we're more involved with like the game companies from like FGC, they're nice enough to kind of like fill us in and give us like games. Uh, I guess during while they're being developed. So we get to pretty much be the testers now.
Yeah,
And
I
you see that
mean,
happen with Street Fighter Five and with DBFZ and
you brought up some really good points because I'm sitting here thinking it's like we got beta test. We tend to do these things where the developers come on and they do showcases. But one thing you mentioned stuck out to me. Like it's like when I first started Street Fighter Five, it didn't really give me that feeling, but now I've been enjoying it a lot. And you mentioned that DBZ had become a different game, and I sat there and
yeah,
I was thinking about this actually yesterday. I was like, in the old school, like let's say you I don't know, pick Virtua Fighter 2 and you saw it in arcades and you played it, right? And
right,
when you go back even to this day, it's the same game, right? Like all
Right.
the good and bad and whatever is in there is there. You can enjoy it in new and different ways, of course. Like if you know as you evolve the game in your mind, or as other people evolve the game. But it's still the same game. But if you start looking at the newer games, that's not true
Hmm.
anymore, right? So like if let's say that I really enjoyed Guilty Gear Sign patch 1.5, right?
Right.
I can never go back and play that. Right, it's because if it got upgraded at some point in patch, you can't go back and do specific versions. Like that game is lost to time essentially. And so I was thinking about that. Like the games you play, if there's at some point you just like, I love this game, this is great, and they can change it and make it not great, and vice versa too, right? Like
Right.
I don't really care for this, but now it's amazing.
Yeah. Um, it's funny because that brings up the fact that the demand was different too from the customer's viewpoint. Because if you think about it, we didn't have as much social media to express our feelings about the game and wanting to play the game, and the passion didn't get across to the developers probably as much as it does now.
Yeah, because like it was kind of one sided, right? Because you had to go buy a magazine and then say, "Oh man, Capcom's working on Street Fighter Alpha 3. Yo, that's sick." You
Exactly.
can't really convey it to them, and unless they go to like the Loke test and stuff, which I'm sure they had, they can't really get like the full opinion and like the wave of I guess thoughts about the game.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, and that's why my patience, I guess, has been. I've always had patience for games in general, but I think I never was that person who. I was always optimistic about like the current games and how they're being developed and how we're getting information as quickly as we get them and how we have access to them. I've been very optimistic about it because of that. The demand is just different, and I know I have faith that the end result will be really good.
Yeah, it's a two-way pipeline, and yeah, and to me, it's one of those things where it depends on how you see it. Because yeah,
Right.
like ultimately they'll shape it towards what the masses want. Generally, that's what happens. But if you really like enjoy something the masses didn't like, then you're just gonna be one of those people just kind of out of luck. But I guess that's how the world works in general, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. Now with like current Guilty Gear Strive, there's this divide, right?
Hmm.
You have on one hand you have like the people who are of course optimistic like me and giving the game its chance or pretty much waiting until the full version comes out and or probably not even a full version, maybe like the next like big season update from there. But you also have the other side where it's like they want to see, I guess, they want to see the game not in its entirety, but they want a good impression on the like on first glance.
Yeah,
And now that we're being the like I guess the testers for these games now at this point, we are we critique, but we're very harsh about it. We're extremely harsh about we critique, and that's a good and a bad thing. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the patience is I guess not there for that side. They want their product I guess in full or something that kind of like helped them when they first experienced the game from the past versions. And if those games pretty much came in like entirety already, but now that we're getting the same treatment as the arcades in Japan
yeah.
used to get, um, yeah, I think because America is, especially the West, we're new to that, so I guess we don't know how to really take it. But with this recent Japan Arcade Expo, it was very interesting watching how the Japanese took Guilty Gear Strive.
Yeah, and generally a lot of people will say that the Japanese people that culturally aren't known for like being harsh with the criticism, but yeah, like from what little I read of the interviews, it looked like they were pretty direct, or rather than direct, they pointed out stuff. They wouldn't say what they felt was wrong with it. They were just like, we're not quite sure what you were thinking with this, And so I guess it kind of gave a lukewarm impression that they clearly have a problem with it, but they don't want to
Right.
blatantly say that it's bad. So I don't know how developers take that. They may understand the underlying tones, or they might just go, well, I guess it's all right. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that, especially in Japan, that they probably know the underlying tones because they've gotten feedback from, Japanese players for years.
Yeah,
I think what's new to them is us giving them feedback and how they take that. That's the interesting part, and that's the big fight right there that we're having with, at least on the West, that we're having.
yeah. I think a lot of that has changed because, well, I've read something interesting, especially I think somebody on my timeline who works in Japan mentioned this as well. Um, like when arcades are still it's still slowly kind of falling off in Japan. But the thing is, Japan doesn't. Apparently, they don't buy consoles on the whole like Europe and the U.S. do.
Right.
So nowadays, when you want to make money in a game, and you can't really expect people to be popping coins in the machines anymore. And the people who are buying the games, or I guess in the Western world, quote unquote. And so you're starting to see more developers are starting to realize this. The Japanese developers are like, we can't really sell these domestically because these people don't want to buy consoles. They want to play games on their phone. But the people in the West still actively play these games and they buy the console. So like it's like if you really think about in isolation Guilty Gear Strive and how much they shown it off in the US, think about every other iteration of Guilty Gear before that.
Yep.
They didn't like even the XR series, they didn't care to like really market it here. Like
Yep.
they showed the trailers, but it was in Japan for a whole year before we even got to even sniff it, right? They did
Yeah.
they literally did not care, but now the reality is kind of set in that those are the people who are buying these games. We have to listen
Yep.
to them, and there's some growing pains with that because like you said, there can be a lot of viciousness or I would say harshness. Depends. If you want to go away from the extreme people, it can just be at worst kind of harsh, and it's going to be varied because there's so many of us. It's spread out, and there's going to be people who have local scenes and versus people who don't are going to have generally different impressions and things they want.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, people who don't have that much of the same, I guess, scale on and viewpoint of the games that different other cities are playing in the West. They're definitely going to have different feedbacks and people who play online versus people who play offline. Yeah, that's that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all you got the whole rollback thing that's been trending and pushing up through, and it's interesting, right? Because
Yeah, rollback.
like most of us, like a lot of us was kind of there's some people who kind of scoff at it to a degree
Hmm.
because again they can just go roll. It's like if you live in Atlanta or I guess in Georgia, like we both do, you can just roll to any event because of thanks to 404, you win that brawl, data, whoever. There's always something going on. Like you, as
Yep.
long as you're willing to put up with the crappy traffic, you can go get some offline games. You don't have to worry about laggy How Morrow on Samurai Showdown. You ain't got to worry about the soul pressing buttons off a disadvantage because he's 6 frames. Because you can go roll and play with your locals. You can go call up your
Yep.
friends and go play. But there's other places where that's not a thing. So they can want that. And as far as I know, I'm not an expert, but it's in the rollback is just to not make connections playable, but to make them closer to the real game on decent connections at least.
Right.
And so for some people, that's a huge change. But what the thing about it is, outside of the actual topic of rollback, I do
Right.
like the community uniting behind an idea and putting it forth. Like this is what we want, whether it's rollback, whether it's consistent single player content. Because you feel like if you look at fighting games today, there's not a lot of that unless you talk about the Western fighting games. They put a whole bunch of single player stuff in there, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of the Japanese games still it's like we got versus mode, we got the arcade mode. There you go, and some of it's changing, like with Street Fighter Five. But like you take Samurai Showdown, like it's a
Right.
cool game, I like it. But versus mode, arcade mode, that's it. Go in training mode, like that's the game, and that's what they expect to sell as much as like a game like Mortal Kombat where you could do a ton of things, right? You go do your towers, you got special events that happen during the game. So like one of the big things, like as I mentioned, it is Grand Blue is like it's changing that too. So like I think they're seeing and noticing these things, and they're moving in a direction. Just hopefully it won't be too slow. We ain't 50
Yeah.
and get all. We're not 50 years old by the time we get what we want.
I think that's the scary part of waiting for Strive for a lot of people is what's going to happen like next. Are we going to get like rollback? They said before they've been kind of vague, sort of vague about like that topic. Um, how are we going to get like what the system is going to be like? Like are we going to be like familiar on some things? It's just a lot of stuff that different people prioritize that that ArcSys is trying to like group together and see which one they think is generally needed. And honestly, I think that's really hard at this point, uh, since it's still kind of early on Strive feedback at least.
Yeah,
I want to say maybe third, fourth quarter. That's when everything's going to set in, and that's when we're going to get the understanding of they're going to get the understanding of what the community really wants for their game. Obviously, the no brainer, like we mentioned, is the net code, right? But
yeah,
I think right now they're still kind of like confused about like, all right, they probably hear us saying that code, but they don't know how powerful it is. I want to say like maybe to like the third or fourth quarter with more feedback, with different tours. I mean, different tournaments that they're having a game at and hosting it at. That's when we're gonna they're gonna finally understand and get flushed out to like what we really prioritize, what we want in Guilty Gear. So to harken back on like what what the companies want, I think that they are listening. I think they are. It may not be the fastest process in the world, but sometimes things take time. That's all it is. Sometimes it just it doesn't come in fast. It's not going to happen overnight. So
that's true. And I guess like to me, like let's say take Strive, and you got people have
yeah.
been yelling about rollback for the past year and a half, and when they roll this game out, so we don't know how like baked in their system is right now. But imagine
Exactly.
like you gotta bake a cake for your best friends group, right? And you like, I'm making
Hmm.
this devil's chocolate cake. It's gonna be fire. Then you find out later that three of them are allergic to chocolate. And then you
Mm,
find out that they've been telling you this for years, but you just didn't really pay enough attention to it. So then it's kind of a double whammy, right?
yeah.
So like it's just one of those things like they've had the information all along, but it's just now being relevant. So we'll see if they've been making that chocolate cake, or if they've been like holding the ingredients and watching to see what people actually want.
Yeah.
So this should be interesting.
Yeah. People have like different flavors, man. So
That's so you just try to either make a cake that you really really want, like you make that chocolate cake and you just tell your three friends I'm sorry, or you make
right.
something that the majority wants. There's a lot of ways to go about it, and it's just a matter of what your principles are, how you want to go about things.
Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, um, it's Daisuke's vision, and I trust Daisuke's vision on the new Guilty Gear.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So yeah. But yeah. So wait. So what was another game that also I'll go straight onto it. DBFZ
Okay.
got its huge update, and I recently tweeted because I see a lot of people uh responding and thinking about picking up strong characters. So let me go back. So the game got a huge update. A game that's pretty known as, I guess, sort of. Ooh.
My bad.
Sort of like for some people, kind of like homogenized, wasn't really all that expressive on, you know, a lot of characters didn't have their individual, like their original, like thing to them. Just, it wasn't as Marvel as for some people.
Hmm.
And for me, that was fine. It was a different game and I've played Marvel before and I do understand that, having your character being different from other characters in the game. But early on they wanted to make a game pretty where characters were similar because pro like it has a pro tour. They didn't want to make things too different, so I understood that, and I stuck with the game. And I would it's from season 1 to season 2 it had a big update, but there was something that didn't change, and one thing that didn't really change was priorities on, I guess, like strong characters, and it was very evident. People like knew what characters were like strong and go to them right away, and that was it. That was the end of it. Like you didn't choose no other character because we pretty much figured the other characters out and they weren't that strong. There was maybe a few slips through the doors, but out of that, like it was dead set. From season two, that was the whole thing. Now
Mm.
season 3, um, there's a it's changed a lot. They've added 3 assists, all that. You have options now. Characters are more they're more consistent with their with what they want to do with their combos, etc. So I say that because I still see the same thing on Twitter, and how everybody will see a top player play a character and they're like, all right, I'm going to play this character, and I'm like, that's cool, that's completely fine. But this game, season 3, is totally different from 1 and 2. Now you can choose different characters, and now you can be more, you know, individual with your play style.
Hmm.
And I see that already because a lot of people are having a hard time of what to pick.
So yeah, sometimes more choices bring about a burden of their own.
Yeah. So but I think it's natural that like people see something strong that somebody else is playing and pick it up. I have no problem with that. But I think they'll find more enjoyment if they, find something that they like and then play that. And I think that was the goal for season 3. And, I've had like maybe like I guess I want to say like 4 or 5 hours into the game, probably more than that actually. And I've messed around with almost like half of the cast,
Hmm.
and I've gotten that impression already. There's so much stuff that I still like, want to test.
So the
'Cause,
game's basically just blown wide open right now.
yes, it's you know, so much is that needs to be going. It's gonna take at least maybe like 2 years for this game to be like figured out. So, but yeah, it's I'm really liking the state of DBZ. They've gotten people who really didn't like the game that much, and they're coming back. Whether they stay or not, I don't care. I'm just happy that they're like willing to like turn it on for their system or PC and just like check stuff out. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the goals for the developers too. Like if I can just get someone to look at this again, they might come back. And
Yeah.
even if it's just like one or two people out of 10. So like even I thought about bringing back the Krill, but like man, you told me I wasn't getting in there, man.
Hey man, I just was messing. I was just teasing.
I mean, you probably
But
right though.
yeah, like yeah, man. Like so many good games out, right? And
Hmm.
so many options. So it's hard to like just stick to like one game. That's why I vowed to myself that I'm only going to stick to 2 games and mess around maybe in like another one, but not take it as seriously as two. So like for me, it's DBFZ and Street Fighter.
Okay. Yeah, I've actually been hearing a lot of philosophies. Like people got a similar one to you, like 2 games. Some people have one. Some people like they'll dabble amongst a bunch of games, but they'll have the one they care about. And then a lot of people take it. Then a lot of people have their own philosophy, and I guess it's based on what it is their ultimate goal is. Because like I guess
Yeah,
if you just want to hang out with your locals, then you just might dabble in everything, but not take any of them that seriously. Just get good enough to play people.
yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, it's just like what you want in the game, and if you don't like it, that's cool. Move on to the next game. You have that option now.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out, and then there's a lot of the older games have been revived. Like SNK's been putting their rollback netcode. We going back to that for a minute, and
Oh yes,
yeah, so like Garo and
Carl.
Five Special, and a lot of those older games are still there on Fightcade and all that. So you don't ever have to just feel like you ain't got nothing to play.
Yeah, and that again, that shows that they're listening.
Yeah. So, because actually, to go back to the Guilty Gear Strive thing for one moment, because
Hmm.
the one thing I've actually noticed with SNK versus ArcSys here is SNK's community manager. You know who it is? So it's
I,
go ahead.
no, I actually don't know.
So
I
it's
was always about to say Sakurai, but no, go
yeah,
ahead.
it's a dude named Crispy Kaiser. I guess he's a former SNK player, but he's been really active on Twitter, and he lives in Japan, but so he speaks fluent Japanese and English. I believe he's American by originally, and so he does weekly streams where he brings on people from various places in the company. Like he'll bring on composers for like Real About Fatal Fury, or he'll bring on a legendary artist and he'll interview them and tell them stuff, right?
That's God, like I actually
Yeah.
didn't know
So yeah. So like
that.
he's like out of all the community managers so far, he's been like the strongest I've seen. So he brought in Oda, who's like one of the main producers of it at SNK, right? And he was talking about Garo, and everyone in the chat lights up. Yeah, man, thanks for putting Roll back in there. Thanks for listening. And he's like, and then he said he looked back and told Oda and the other dude. He was a producer, another producer or director, and I can't remember his name. But they were like, whoa, whoa. And that kind of showed that having a bridge like that, someone who is
Right.
constantly actively engaged in the community outside of like giving news, like for the most part, you feel like the community manager's like, yo, here's the greatest news. But this guy, he like actively streams himself playing KOF 98, 2002, Garo, or whatever else. And and he
That's
also
so
yeah,
awesome.
he also brings on guests from producer shows, and he's actively answering stuff on Twitter. Like he's engaged with the community, and he is able to say, hey, I know you guys are worried about the PC version. We can't give you details, but I've been bugging them about it, and we'll just say that it's coming. Because that's the big thing with Samsung right now is that it does not have a PC release, and he's been
Oh,
easing that pain by saying like I can't give you details, but I've been pestering them about it. Like you guys want rollback, I've been telling them that this is what you want, and I think SNK does. I mean, ArcSys does not have something equivalent to that.
oh,
So there's gonna be always that disconnect where like they got the surveys from the beta, but like there's no one to take that collective, force from Twitter, Facebook, or wherever, YouTube, and it's like slap
yeah,
it on their desk in a nice to see, easily to digest fashion like SNK has.
yeah, and that's why we have that huge. We always have the huge fights with each new Guilty Gear Strive video because we don't have nobody to, like really heal that ease that pain.
Yeah, and
So
communication is like it's just an amazing thing because it's like you don't have to do everything right. No one expects
right,
you to, but they want to know what it is you're doing, what it is you're trying to sell them, and what it is, and you just want to let them to know how you feel.
yeah.
So if there's
I
two,
think
go ahead.
I was gonna say I think the awesome thing about that is because so we get for extra for Guilty Gear Strive we get Daisuke sort of to kind of like answer people questions through interviews. But the thing about that is it's translated. So you have the back and forth in the West where it's like maybe he didn't mean it this way, no, he meant it that way. But the thing that I'm really liking about hearing from the guy who you just mentioned is you don't have to even worry about that. Period. He's right there on Twitter. He's answering like the questions right there.
Yeah, and so like since he speaks both languages very well, he can properly convey the ideas both ways.
Yeah, and that's not a shot at people who are like translating uh,
Yeah, no,
Japanese.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's just that having it in articles like that is still pretty like scary for for some people. So
Because like if you see two different people like interpret things like a certain way, it could be like
hmm
it can just throw the whole thing. So like you got one consistent person who is your go between, and they're doing their best to convey the ideas. I think that makes you feel a bit more comfortable. That's my
yeah,
opinion.
we've definitely had multiple articles that were translated by multiple people. Like probably like one article I think one time was translated by like 5, 10 people on Twitter. And the whole community was like blowing up. Nah, this is what they meant. This is what they meant. It was crazy.
You got people out there that was using Google Translate and throwing everybody into chaos.
Yeah.
I get what you mean.
So so yeah. I think having a community manager or a person that's like close to the community like that in a company is fantastic. The last person who I thought of like that was who I could think of is Seth Gilliam.
Yeah, he was really good when he was active with Capcom because he was like conveying thoughts. Like a lot of stuff apparently happened because of him, and like
Yeah.
that was kind of the beginning of it. And I see like Crispy Kaiser, the guy for SNK, is like the evolution of it. And so
Hmm.
like hopefully Arxis finds somebody like that. Like for it's like this random example, they say, hey Kizzy K, you know, come down to Japan and we'll do this. We'll tell you about the game. We want you to tell us what the U.S. scene thinks and we'll convey it to you, and then you go back and convey it to them. Like you can have some translator help them or whatever, but like have
Right.
somebody that community knows, trusts, thinks of as a positive, good force to just like hey, this is what these guys are up to. This is what they want. What do you want? And I'll pass it back to them. So I think something like that can go a long way for Arxis and bridging the gap between the Western fan base and the Japanese developers.
Funny story about Seth Killian, by the way. This is when Marvel 3 had they were having like little, I guess it was an underground. Did you ever go to that when Marvel 3 was in
I did not.
underground
I
in New
could
York?
not make it, but I do remember that.
Yeah, so I was standing in a line. It was a long line, and I remember I just was sitting there and I was talking to my friends, and then like for a good 5-10 minutes, I did not know the guy who was in our conversation, like kind of like next, because it was like two groups of us talking and having a conversation. I didn't know the other guy in the second group talking was Seth Killian. I was like, wait, and like I didn't notice it until he walked away, and I went and talked to my friend. I was like, wait a minute, were you having a conversation with Seth Killian? He's like, yeah, he was like here for like a good 5-10 minutes. I was like, he was like, what? He seemed like one of us. He was like, yeah. I was like, that's crazy. So that goes to show you just how like deep rooted he is in the community. When he was working for Capcom.
Yeah, that's perfect because like he knows what people want. He knows what people want, and he knows how to like he don't come across as like the public face of the company. Rather, he's just the guy who's like he plays the games. He likes them as much as you do, and he's gonna do his best to get what you guys want.
Yeah. Yep. So uh I guess that's all for me uh for now that I have.
Yeah, I got nothing else
Yes.
either. So you can wrap this up. Any last words?
I just want to say whoever is listening to this, thank you for all your support and for all you do. Um uh, we'll be doing these more and more now. It's pretty fun for us, and I just yeah, that's about it.
All right, yeah. It took us a while to get back to it, but here we are. We just did this impromptu, no starting topic, and we managed to roll out what about 37 minutes, so just shy of 40. So that's pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
I'm
not too long.
yeah, not too long, but not too short, so you can enjoy it just enough. And I don't know if we're gonna change the name. I'm gonna toss a real talk with Casey, coaching
Yeah,
Casey one more time, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And I'll just go back and change the last episodes if we change it up. But yeah, we just want to get back in the swing of things and just get it moving. We'll see where it goes from there. And ideally, we're gonna have these going once a week, but you never know what happens.
yeah. I'm probably going to be going our locals. So the Macon local once a month and the data, not data, 404 local once a month. So next week I'll be going to 404
Okay.
Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't not announced the next event at Macon. Shout outs to the reboot crew. Sir Retro doing your thing. But when they do, I'll let you know. But
Alrighty, cool.
all right,
Yeah, I
so
really
yeah,
enjoyed it out there. It was pretty cool.
yeah,
So
yeah, man, they've been building up, and that can be something we can talk about next time. And see, how people
yeah,
trying to come up. But yeah, be easy and do your thing.
yes. This is Casey signing off.
All right, this is Coach. Peace.
Peace.